Alright, so in this next video I'm going to be using Elementor to build again the same page. If you don't know what I'm referring to, please just look at the introduction video before that one. Again, I've decided to go with the block layout or box layout because it just seems like that in the final one, but I'm going to show you how to do the full width after. The reason that I take the time to show that to you and to talk to you about that is that because I do believe that in Elementor it makes a difference the way that you build it. For example, if I just use here my I'm going to recreate the header at the top here, so I'm going to use a section here. So I could use that section here and put my image behind in the background of that section here. So let me do that. So it really looks like my computer is doing something at the same time, so it's pretty slow right now, but should be all right. So as you can see, it's in the background of that. Let me just expand that so I can put a specific height, for example, a minimum height here of 650, just like I did with Thrive Architect, for those of you who have watched that video. And the content is here in the middle, and now I can add columns and things like that to it. But it takes the full width, so I will have to, of course, as you can see, my image is repeating, so I will have to simply come here and change the size to cover or something like that. Okay, and now starting there, I can use my my columns and other layout elements. Another way of doing the same thing, and this is what I've done, is using again a section, but this time clicking on the column and putting that in the background of the column, the inside element, instead of the section itself. And of course, this is when you want to have something boxed. And by the way, Elementor will not show it to you until you have some other content. So let me, for example, bring columns inside of it, and then suddenly the background appears. Now, if I do it that way, even if I come here for the section, let's say, and I do set a minimum height, since the background is on the column inside, not the section itself, as you can see, it won't do the same thing at all. So I will have to use some margin or padding to be able to push my content just to make sure that it works as expected. So we'll have to deal with numbers, we'll have to do try and errors. So I did already that to save some time for the video, but that's the difference with using Elementor. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to use it that way and then use some columns for the internal elements. Alright, so in terms of development time, as you can see, just a couple minutes more than what we had with Thrive Architect if I compare. So pretty similar in terms of development time. Probably mostly due to the fact that I needed to change the font uppercase and colors and so on each and every time, whereas with Thrive Architect some of the features were already done on the first step. Couple of things to note. I had to use columns here, so depending on the size, sometimes it might create a little bit of problems. The size of the button, I was not able to specify it. So of course you can specify pre-made sizes, but there's no custom size. So if I make it bigger, it's not gonna simply enlarge it, it's gonna put it bigger on top and bottom as well. And if I try to put some padding or margin, it's gonna put it around the button, not inside the button. So I didn't find any way to expand that. There are more advanced buttons in some plugins, some extensions that we have for Elementor, but I tried to go with the basic one. And by the way, I installed Elementor Pro, but didn't need it for this particular example. So all of that can be done with the free version of Elementor. Next thing, for those section here, so the image with the text here and the quote here, I had to manually put some CSS because there's no way to wrap or to float to use the right CSS term, as I did with the previous with Thrive Architect. So I had to do that manually, and there's a drawback to that. I cannot select back my image here, for example. If I want to do so, I will have to, for example, here, come and add, let's say, a lot of margin here at the top to move it down, select that, and change something, and then put it back where it was. So it's not ideal in that regard. Same thing for the quotes here. So it's possible, but not the best thing. Now, if I do like I did with the other example with Thrive Architect, and I want to change my mind and go with the full width. So I just had one setting to change in Thrive Architect, and it's not really the case here. So, well, since we have many sections, and I tried to have just one section and put things inside of that, but that doesn't really make it because of the background like this one. So I need to come here and change that to full width. But I will need to do that on each and every boxes that I have. So it's possible to do so. Not too long, not too hard. Still a little bit more. This one is white, so it doesn't make really a difference, but just in case for mobile, I'm going to put that as well. So now we have a full width layout. And by the way, if I want to preview that, I can simply click on that, and this is what it looks like. Whoops. Forgot to expand my image here. So by going there, I will need to stretch my image. Set to no repeat, that's okay, but cover here. All right. Now, next step, if I want to see how it looks on tablets and mobiles. So again, it's pretty easy, just like it was with the Thrive Architect, sorry, in terms of development. But not everything can be changed, and that's the difference between the two. So here, if I'm in tablet mode, luckily it's not too bad here for my two columns. My image is a little bit too far there, but I can just come here and change the position. In this particular case, it's pretty good, okay? Depending on the image that you have in the background, though, that might not be an option. So in this particular case, I was lucky enough. It arrived at the right spot. I could, of course, move my columns if it wasn't the case, but it's not too bad. It goes well in this particular case. That is perfect. Here we have two lines, here just one line, so but that's not too bad. It was probably the same on the other one. Here it starts to move a little bit, so and here I don't have any space, so I would have probably to come here, and you will see here in Elementor you have everywhere that you see three little buttons like that for desktop, tablets, and mobile. these are things that you can change for those different device. So if you don't have that, that means that what you change, you will change for all the three devices, all the three screen sizes, I should say. So if I go here, let's say to that column, and I switch to a desktop, you see that there's nothing here, so it's not margin, it's padding. So 0, 30, 0, 30. And if I go here, I will have to change that. Of course, if I put 0 everywhere, that's not going to be exactly what I want. So let's say 15 maybe. Oops, sorry. I need to uncheck or unselect that. Let's say something like 15. That's good. Even 20, I think, from my test was all right. Okay. So fits there. I might want to move that up a little bit, but I think I don't want to take the time to do that. Now, of course, I need to do that for each and every one of those. So 20, 20. So a little bit more work than what we had to do with Drive Architect. Meet the owner section, maybe put some space here on the left as well, so there's no space there. So let's say maybe, well, there's already a lot of space on the right, but let's say maybe I can still put that because I'm gonna move that as well. This one here, I think it's something like 40, so if I put 0 everywhere, we have some margins as well in this particular case. So let's put everything to 0, and that should be quite fine. Text line here, so we might want to push down that little middle here. So again, like I said previously, I will need to come here and say, for example, something like that, to be able to push it down. Margin top, let's say something like, I don't know, 15 or 20. So 15 seems to be all right. Okay, so that works fine. Of course, I could put some space here if I wanted to, but that's okay for me like that. So this is for tablet view. Now let's go with mobile view. And now this, if you remember, we want to change that if we want to look similar to the final example. So I can come here, and I think that we have a margin top of 120 or something like that. So I can simply come here and change that to, let's say, 10. I think that's what I did in the other example. I could be 10 above and bottom as well. Let's put the image centered. That text will be smaller. So again, we can change the size here in the just for mobile view, but all of that will change for all the screen sizes. Okay, so that's fine. If we wanted to, we could put the button center. That is okay, and this is where we have some trouble. So I'm gonna skip that section. I'm gonna come here first to see if everything is all right. I'm gonna put that image centered. I could put some space below it, so let's say 20 at the bottom. The rest is all right. I could bring that back to 5 pixel top. So let's say, again, I cannot select it without doing something like that, though I don't really like that thing. Don't really have any option. Let's put it back like that. Okay, and this is pretty cool. Now we still have one border here, though we don't really see it, but the border here is still there, by the way, and that's one of the problem. If we come here to try to remove that border, we will remove the border for every screen size, and that's a problem. Same thing here above, as I mentioned. So now we have a border, we have text that goes beyond all of that, so that's pretty messy here. So I can try to arrange that, but let me see. I think that I can come here and set the maximum width of the table to be 263, which is the size of the image. As you can see now, we can see the border here, and on top there's no border on the left because this is what we decided to do. But we have the problem that I mentioned previously. If we do that, I'm going to do that for all screen sizes. So if I just want to add that back, know that there will be a border in the desktop view as well and tablet view as well. Same thing here for that border. I cannot remove just the border top, so I will have a gray border here as well on mobile view. Okay, so this is something that is different than what we saw previously with Thrive Architect. Now, as for the text itself, I will need to remove, I think I had a negative margin here, so I'm going to put it something like that. And my text here, I have a negative margin as well, so I'm going to put it like that, but still maybe still a lot of space, so maybe something like that. So that is pretty good. The only problem, like I said, is the fact that we have the border, which is not exactly what we want. And of course I need to do that 3 times. Oh, through 63. Now we have a big problem here. Just notice that this is something that is not mobile responsive as well. So as you can see now, changes a lot. So we cannot do that because the column width, the content width, is set for all the screen devices at the same time. Pretty bad. So we cannot do it that way. I will have to go back to 928 was what I add. So I will have surely other problems if I try to work with that on mobile here. So I can try to put some margins instead here to be able to push on that, and that would work. But the problem is that how much? Because of course, let's say for example I do it like that in this view, which seems to be pretty close to what we need. Let's say something like that. Okay. Sorry. When I go to test on a real device, or even here on my my emulator inside Firefox, you will see that depending on the size of the screen, it will not look the same, of course. So let's say iPhone 6e. Now my border goes beyond here, and if I say iPhone SE, that's the opposite, and so on. So really problematic here. So I would still need to go inside the code and try to change that for the width. Probably the best would be to change the width of the columns of the box, the overall box, as I did first. But of course, as we saw, we changed everything. So I will need to go inside custom CSS here and create a rule that would say if the screen is smaller than, let's say, 768, then the screen size will be no more than X amount. So let's say, let me get rid of that here. So let's say I'm gonna do that directly here on the column. I'm going to do a class. Let's say, I don't know, fixed width will be the name of my class. I can come here and say at media screen and max width just a little bit less than the tablet view. Let's say something like that, and let's say the fixed width will have a maximum width of 263 pixels. Then we also need to have a margin 0 auto. So that would work, as you can see. Now I need to apply that to all of the column, but then again I need to do that to code manually, which is not something that I like to do. Okay, and I still need to change some other things. Whoops, sorry, my mouse is starting to go a little bit slow. Did I put it on the right thing? Sorry. No. Probably put it on the column instead. Yeah. So that would work. But again, if you don't know CSS, how to code CSS, then you're left with a big problem. And again, I have my border here that I need to change. I need to change the padding here, margin, set that to 0, and so on. So, not done yet. Let's come here. Let's try to do that fast. Here it was something probably like that. 2020. I need to get rid of the margins here, and here as well. I still add -20 here on the other one. I need to put back my border as well, and do the same thing here. Let's put back my border before I forget it. Okay, I think that's the rest is done. Here, margin 0, and here margin 0 as well, but -20. All right. So a little bit of work to do, a little bit tedious here, and of course requires some CSS knowledge. By the way, there are great tools like Microthemer, CSS Hero, and others that allows you a yellow pencil that allows you to edit CSS. I have a video on that as well, comparing the 3 of them, and I think another one as well. So you might want to take a look at that. So this is what it will look like once done. And now let's do the testing for the speed. So results are pretty similar to what we had with Thrive Architects. A little bit higher here. The last time that I checked, I think it was for something like 460. So don't know if I added something here, just a little bit of CSS maybe, but don't know if that what is changed so much. So about 100 kilobytes more, something like that. A little bit more request as well. I think it was below 40 with the other one. So not that much. That is not enough to say that we choose one over the other. So of course you know that I prefer Thrive Architect, a lot more flexible. But beside that, if you use to Elementor, this is not necessarily an argument of choice to say that one is better than the other. Okay, the difference is there, but it's really small. So I hope you enjoyed that. Of course, you can just put a thumbs up if you like that video. You can subscribe to my channel if it's not the case. And this video is part of a series, so I've already done Thrive Architect, Elementor, and I'm going to test a couple of others. You will see those videos in the same channel. Thank you.